And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at Oceans. Now, this is from North Star Games, who have a lot of games out there. The one that they probably have pushed the most in the last few years and talked about the most is Evolution. Evolution is a game about evolving species and getting food and surviving and attacking other species, defending yourself from other species. Oceans is a very similar idea, except it happens in, well, the ocean. Now, the idea of the ocean, the idea of species underneath is amazing. Such a huge percentage of our planet is underwater. The vast majority of the species on Earth live underwater. There's so much, I just love watching documentaries about underneath the water. So the idea of this is really cool to me. Let's see how the game works. The goal of this game is to get the most fish. There's lots of different color fish, but you're just using different colors depending on how many players are in the game. They're all the same, and they're all worth a point. You'll be keeping them behind your little shield as the game goes by. Now, players are going to be building species over the course of this game. And so when it's your turn in the game, you are going to either migrate fish, which essentially means you discard a card and you'll move that many fish from one of the ocean spots to the reef or to another ocean spot where you can move them wherever you want, or you're going to make a new species. So when you make a species, you're going to take one of these. This is your species card. You'll place it in front of you, and then you'll add a trait to it. So maybe I'll put tentacled on this fish here, which says this species here happens to be tentacled now. On a future turn, I could put out another fish. Maybe put out an apex predator here, or I could even make this one an apex predator. And so each of these can have up to 3 traits on them. So this one here would be tentacled, whale cleaner, symbiotic. This one might be an apex predator, but I'm going to give it speed, which even lets it have an extra trait. It could have 4. So players are going to, at the end of your turn, be drawing more traits, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. But once you put a trait out on your fish and add a new one, and they're all adjacent. When you add a new one, I could put one between these 2 fish, over here, because I'm also adjacent to my opponent's fish, and sometimes things will affect the person to the right or the left. Then you can pick one of your fish to feed. So when you pick a fish to feed, each fish can feed off of the reef with their green number. So if this speed was on a fish, they have 2 here. That's forage, and they'll be able to take 2 fish off the reef. If you don't have one, then you always have 1. So this fish here, let's say I feed with him, he'll take 1. But this says I can feed an extra time. So boom, now he has 2 fish on him. If you ever fill up your thing completely, you'll overpopulate and shoot down to 5. So you got to be careful not taking too many. But it doesn't matter, because at the end of your turn, you're going to age, taking 1 fish off of each of your fish and putting it here. And if you can't do that, then they go away. They go extinct, and you discard everything there. There are predators in the game. That's the red. When these guys eat, so I can add these together, he would have 5. You would eat up to that many fish off of another fish. It could even be your own. But let's say my opponent had a fish that had a bunch of stuff like this. I could take all 5 of those off of that fish and put them on mine. So you can't forage. If you're the apex predator, you'll notice that shows that you can't forage. And there's foragers, like this filter feeder, who can attack other fish. There's also cards that have defense on them, and that defense number, the apex predator has it here, will subtract from someone else who's attacking you. So that's the 2 main ways to get food, is by foraging or attacking other fish. There's also fish that can gain. Like this one says symbiotic. This says gain 1 after the species to the left forages or attack. And when you gain fish, they can come from one of the ocean spots here. So that's what players are doing. They're trying to get these fish, and then at the end of your turn, 1 comes off of each of these behind your tray. Now, things are going to change, because as time goes by, we're going to run out of fish in the reef, and players are going to have to start moving fish over. And when you move them all out of the first spot here, then the Cambrian explosion happens. When this happens, now players will play 2 cards instead of 1. They're going to age 2. Each of your fish will have 2 come off instead of 1, and you can play deep cards. See, what's interesting about this game is you have these surface cards here, and there are 12 types, 10 cards of each type. So you'll see a lot of the same cards over and over again. Filter feeder, filter feeder, filter feeder, filter feeder, schooling, apex predator. There's a lot of variety here, but once the Cambrian explosion happens, you can draw from the deep deck. And you can draw from the face-up cards or from the face-down ones. Draw 3, put 2 on top of their decks. But every single card in this deck is different. So here I have a bigger whale cleaner. Here I got zooplankton, caviation bullet, pack hunting, and you can see that every card here is going to do all kinds of weird, interesting things. Also, when you play these cards, you're going to have to give up victory points or pay fish to put these into play. So they're a little trickier, but they're going to allow you to make some very specific things. So after being attacked, I can swap a deep trait on this species for a trait in the gene pool. This lets me have an extra trait, and I can store a 9 extra population on the board. Is a Leviathan. He ages faster, but look how much he attacks for 5 and may not be attacked by others. Camouflage gives you extra defense for every other species that you have. There are so many different traits in here. So these are a little trickier, and they're all unique, and they're not only going to be played about halfway through the game. Also, when this ocean thing is emptied, these cards, which are going to be different every game, will come into play. Now, new species will gain 2, or here, all species automatically get 2 forage when this comes into play. When the last fish is removed from the ocean, at that point, you'll throw in an extra 60 fish that you've set aside. Players will get an additional turn, and then after that, you're simply going to add up points, and whoever has the most fish is the winner. The components for oceans is incredible. You have a nice insert here in which you'll be able to put all the different pieces. Will fit right in there like that. It's very nice. The fish themselves are colorful. You have various fish tokens, easy to look at. They're pretty. They even get lost in the reef, which normally I complain about, but in this game works really well thematically. You have some point tokens here like this. These are given to first player. This game actually has a weird thing in that whoever's first gets more points than everyone else because, well, you can be attacked. The main thing that's just fascinating about this game is the artwork. Like every single card that's on the deep ones is a different piece of art. That's really neat, and the artwork here is gorgeous and fantastic. I really like all the different advanced eyes, crushing jaw. It's just neat, and it adds this really cool look. The whole thing here has a great look to it. I might complain at this Cambrian explosion here. I might have preferred it to not be a card that you pull out because, I don't know, I feel like this card's going to get beat up after a time. But really, that's the biggest complaint I have about it. It's just a gorgeous game, and also these shields are not that impressive. These are pretty low shields, easy to see behind. They fall over all the time. I don't know. I don't think it's that big of a deal. Keep track of other people's score anyway. There's a lot of cool things in here. The game comes with a reference guide that explains all the different, basic cards. It shows you all the main cards and then gives you some common phrases that are used in the deep cards. And frequently asked questions and this. It's just really well put together. It's really interesting to me that I didn't know anything about oceans going into it. I said, hey, let's give it a whirl. And as soon as I played, I said, this feels very familiar. And that's because thematically and a lot of the mechanics of the game are very similar to Evolution, to the point where they almost fill the same box for me. Like, I like Evolution. I think it's a good game. I like Oceans a little better. But I gotta be honest, the main reason I like Oceans a little better is because I love the underwater part of it. But I also love the vast amount of those deep water cards. The only thing that bugs me about this game is you gotta wait till halfway through the game to get the deep water. And then you also gotta pay points. And when you draw one, you can't necessarily get rid of it. So you gotta be careful how many of those you draw. But they're so tempting because Leviathan's sitting right there. And I've always wanted to control Leviathan. So there's so much going on in this. If you've never played Evolution, you do need to understand that Oceans is a mean game. It really is. But at the same time, everyone is being mean to everybody else. So it's not that big of a deal. Yes, you just ate my fish. Now I'm eating their fish. Then they're eating mine. Now I'm going to eat my own fish. And the trickiest part of Oceans for me is when to use the migrate cards, because I really hate helping my fellow players out. You know, if Barbara's about to just do something amazing, why should I move 10 fish in the reef to let her eat them? Unless, of course, I was about to eat her fish afterwards, and that is what makes the game fun for me. So the Oceans has a lot of good things going for it. It has this beautiful, gorgeous look on the table. It has the diversity. I mean, you're never going to play the same game twice, especially with there being so many of those deep cards. And in fact, you can tailor the game a bit. If you don't like attacking, you can take the attack cards out of the deep deck, basically, and just don't put them in there if you don't like it being that mean. So it has that diversification aspect to it, and it doesn't take too long. At the beginning, you're like, this doesn't seem like it's going anywhere, and then it snowballs, or water balls, or whatever you say in the ocean. Negatively, like I said, even if you take those cards out, there's still the apex predators. There's still ways you're going to go after each other. You're going to do things and get in each other's faces. I don't mind that. That is fun, but some people may not, and I think they will enjoy this one a little bit less. And it's also possible to get shut out sometimes because you put out a fish and you eat some stuff and then the next person takes it away. But it's figuring out a combo. That guy next to me keeps attacking. If I put this one here, I'll get some extra food when that attack happens, and you can feed off that person. And there's really cool combos, and there's so many of them that you're going to have fun just going out and discovering them. So that's Oceans. I think this one's cool. Like I said, it's in the same bucket of games as Evolution. And I don't know that everyone needs to have both in their collection. Although, you know, one's land, one's sea. For me, the vast diversity and the actual theming of this push it a little bit ahead for me. Either way, a lot of fun. Check out Oceans. Dice Tower Judgment approved.